We're back with the Republican Party still buzzing about Cory Booker's Bain comment. They'd like you to think that criticism from a Democrat on Meet the Press can completely delegitimize the president's argument. But they're forgetting something. Republicans started the Bain attacks. I'm serious. Here, watch for yourself.
We need to have more venture capitalism going on in America and less vulture capitalism.
Do you really believe this country wants to elect a Wall Street financier as the president of the United States? Do you think that's the kind of experience we need? Someone who's going to take and look after, as he did, his friends on Wall Street and bail them out at the expense of Main Street America?
The fact is, he still is not prepared to release any documents from Bain to prove anything. So I think we have no idea what his net job creation was.
Governor Romney has claimed to have created 100,000 jobs at Bain, and people are wanting to know, is there proof of that claim?
When people can point to where you've made a quick profit and kick people out of their jobs, that is an issue that's got to be addressed.
I just asked you a question. I'm shocked at how defensive they are.
This is Romney's biggest problem. The backbone of his campaign has already been destroyed by his own party. Joining me now is Steve Kornacki, political writer for Salon.com and an MSNBC contributor. He's writing about Cory Booker's TV apology, and Dana Milbank, political columnist for the Washington Post. Thanks to both of you for your time tonight.
Sure. Hi, Reverend.
Steve, Republicans are using Booker to go after the president, but what will they say about all the Republicans attacking Romney for all of the last few months?
Well, it's the same way they deal with George W. Bush. You pretend it never happened. But, I mean, the reality is, you look at those clips from this year, you could look back at clips from every election, basically, that Mitt Romney's ever run from 1994 on against Republicans and against Democrats. His opponents always seem to recognize, whichever party they're from, that this is his chief vulnerability as a candidate. You could look back to 2008. Mike Huckabee used to tell voters in Iowa that Mitt Romney reminded them of the guy who fired them. John McCain, invoked Bain in the run-up to the Florida primary, the critical Florida primary in 2008. I can only find one campaign that Mitt Romney's ever run where his opponents haven't really brought this up. It was his primary for the U.S. Senate in 1994 when he was running against a venture capital guy. Other than that, everybody brings it up.
So, Dana, when we hear Romney defending himself, and he had to defend himself against a big attack on this with Newt Gingrich. Let me show you this back in January. His defending himself in a debate against an attack by Newt Gingrich.
The specific cases where Bain Capital's model, which was to take over a company and dramatically leverage it, leave it with a great deal of debt, made it less likely to survive. I think the governor ought to explain. It started because he cited his experience as a key part of his preparation for being president.
We started a number of businesses. 4 in particular created 120,000 jobs. As of today, we started them years ago. They've grown well beyond the time I was there to 120,000 people that have been employed by those enterprises. There are others we've been with, some of which have lost jobs. I'm very proud of the fact that throughout my career, I have worked to try and build enterprises, hopefully to return money to investors. There's nothing wrong with profit, by the way.
Now, 2 things about that, Dana, that I want you to comment on. One, he has a cute way of saying we had 4 businesses that have grown now to 120,000, never really saying how much they had grown while he was still at Bain and under his leadership, that he calls himself a job creator. He says they're building till where now? Well, how many of them did you create, since you call yourself a creator? The other thing is that what is missing here, which is bothersome to me, is they don't attack other Republicans who've raised even more serious and direct questions about Bain and his activity as anti-capitalist and anti-free enterprise. Only the president. Are they trying to send a subliminal anti-American message on the president, i.e. the birther strategy and other things that they've done so far this year?
Well, certainly, Reverend, there's been a pattern for them doing this sort of thing. In fairness, there was a little bit of pushback during the primaries when they said, look, guys, Republicans were saying to fellow Republicans, look, you're going to regret what you're doing right now in terms of suggesting that this was an anti-capitalist line. So they did sort of lay that predicate out there right now. I think what you've got here is this, sort of seizing on the Cory Booker thing. It's not quite parallel to, being hit by Newt Gingrich, Rick Perry, Rick Santorum. These are names Americans recognize. When you hear Cory Booker, he's an accomplished guy, but a lot of Americans are going to say, who is that? But this is really the way, it's really the only card that Romney, that the Republicans can play to go at this vulnerability. Ultimately, it's not going to be what Cory Booker said or what Newt Gingrich or anybody else said. It's going to be the merits of the subject at hand, and Romney is his own worst enemy on this because he's constantly saying things like, I enjoy being able to fire people.
Now, Steve, as Dana mentioned, Mayor Cory Booker, last night on our network, Cory Booker complained about the GOP's distortion of his words and how this is the only issue they seem to want to stand with him on. Watch this.
Anybody who watched the entire Meet the Press saw not only was I defending Obama's positions on numerous issues, but I also talked about super PAC money and the negative campaigning, and my outrage and really my frustration was about the cynical negative campaigning, the manipulating of the truth. And so here they are plucking sound bites out of that interview to manipulate them in a cynical manner, to use them for their own purposes. And that slogan is really what had me and basically my entire staff are really fit to be tied. And if anybody listens to the entire Meet the Press and they want to stand with me, they'll see that I stand firmly with the president.
Now, in fairness to Mayor Booker, who I know and have worked with and will continue to work with, but I did last night question what was he thinking saying this. He did, if you look at the full context of what he said, let's play what he said, he was concerned about more than Bain.
Mm-hmm. This kind of stuff is nauseating to me on both sides. It's nauseating to the American public. Enough is enough. Stop attacking private equity. Stop attacking Jeremiah Wright. This stuff has got to stop, because what it does is it undermines, to me, what this country should be focused on. It's a distraction from the real issues. It's either going to be a small campaign about this crap, or it's going to be a big campaign, in my opinion, about the issues that American public cares about.
So, Steve, I mean, you've covered Mayor Booker, but I think he was concerned about more than Bain, but I absolutely disagree with him that comparing Bain and whether or not Romney's a job creator, who he made this the centerpiece of his campaign, is the same thing as some outside group bringing in Reverend Jeremiah Wright. I think that he misspoke making that comparison and why he's nauseating, because you're dealing with one guy who the centerpiece of his campaign is, I was a job creator at Bain, and another guy where they asked a billionaire to bring in an issue that was dealt with 4 years ago.
Right. No, and he did, I think he did cop to saying, I made a false equivalency there. I shouldn't have done that last night. What I had a problem with, what he did last night, is he didn't engage with the part of the Meet the Press interview where he specifically and pointedly singled out Bain by name and talked about the good things and how, sort of on the whole, Bain had been a force for good. That's paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said on there. So it wasn't just about the tone. He singled out Bain. And I really think it's pretty clear to me, I've followed Booker going back 10 years now, what happened here. I mean, this is a guy who just has a deep and extensive sort of personal fundraising history with sort of the investor class, the Wall Street elites. They bankrolled his first campaign. They're going to be key to any statewide campaigns he runs in the future. He's very comfortable sort of talking their language, and I don't think he fully recognized before this week how much the meltdown in 2008 fundamentally changed the Democratic Party when it comes to having those kind of relationships with Wall Street. I think he learned the hard way, and I think last night that was a guy doing damage control, and I think it was a little slippery, to be honest with you.
Now, so you're saying that he was slippery and that he has connections to the crowd, the Bain's capital.
Absolutely.
And
he
that's
represents,
what he was
in a way, he represents where the Democratic Party, where sort of the heart of the Democratic Party was in the Clinton years, Robert Rubin, Goldman Sachs. There's sort of an alliance there that came up during the Clinton years between the Democratic Party and Wall Street. And Booker's rise kind of came in the late 90s, early part of last decade, and he's very good at it. But he cultivated those ties. He raised a lot of money from that, even money from Bain, from people associated with Bain. And again, I think the meltdown really changed where the heart of the Democratic Party is. People do not like those ties. They are not comfortable with them anymore. And I don't think Booker was fully prepared or fully realized that.
Well, the issue of Bain, and again, the issue, Dana, was brought up by Romney, who used Bain as his example of his being a job creator. When you, in a poll, when people were asked whether they believe Romney's, or what they believe his motivation was at Bain, 57% of the people say profits, 12% say job creation, and only 25% say both equally. Mm-hmm. Mr. Romney has never broken down, after all of these attacks by all of his opponents during the Republican primary and the subsequent attacks since then, he still has not broken down how he was a job creator at Bain. Is that not fair game for the opponent, the incumbent president, and the public? And if we're going to be responsible in the media, for us to say you need to put up or shut up?
Well, Reverend, I think the whole subject is fair game, and I've been, preaching for a long time about how ugly our politics are getting. But the parallel to Reverend Wright was to say, well, it would be disgusting to go after Romney's Mormon religion. I think that's the parallel there. This is a matter of substance that needs to be litigated out there. The problem here, I was at a hearing today on Capitol Hill for J.P. Morgan. People were saying, is there going to be a new wave of regulation? Forget it. Both parties in this town are largely controlled by corporations. And when the president makes one small gesture and raises a question about whether this particular company is doing something that's in the best interest of the company, well, that's against the entire free market system. It's just a very strange sort of argument.
Very strange. Steve, you heard Dana say he's been preaching, and you thought I wouldn't influence people. Steve Kornacki and Dana Milbank, thanks for your time. Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks, Reverend.
Ahead, the president of Fox News says voters still don't know anything about Barack Obama. That's just outrageous.